yeah. Oh, yeah. Blink, blink, blink.
Yo, yo, yo. Big, go.
Ready to rock.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Godzilla vs. King Kong behind the scenes. We're going to chat a little bit about what we were doing to shoot this battle and capture it. I think capture is going to be more of the right phrase for this specific one.
As you may have noticed, we released this behind the scenes a couple weeks after the main battle. Why? Lazy? No. This battle is so new and so different than any other battle that we did before. The whole story of how we made it is way different, and we weren't prepared to tell that story on the same day that we dropped the battle. So thanks for waiting, and here it is.
From the depths of the sea, the king of the monster, took you up, dog. This Kong's getting conquered.
Why did we choose this matchup? I did not. I hated this matchup, but that doesn't stop us from making things. I wasn't a fan of Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates. I thought that was a terrible idea. Turns out I was wrong. And I'm not a dictator here at the Epic Rap Battles of History, so me and Lloyd kind of take turns having a matchup that we feel really passionate about that the other one doesn't. And Lloyd was passionate about this one.
In Japan, you were a metaphor for nuclear war, but in Hollywood, they cut your balls off and left them on the floor.
We're going on tour.
In June and July, the ERB Live Tour 2024, hitting mostly the UK, but a couple places beyond. So check out erbofhistory.com for ticket and location information and all that good stuff. We're really pumped.
Big shout out to our patrons. If you're not a part of the ERB Patreon, please check it out. It's patreon.com/ERB. They give us a whole hell of a lot of support, not only to make the battles, but to keep going.
We'd like to answer some questions from our patrons. We got these questions on a live stream we did.
We've seen a couple of cameos from Rodan, Mothra, Mechagodzilla. Were there any cameos that you wanted to throw in but you missed?
There weren't any other cameos planned. In fact, the Rodan and Mothra cameo probably would have gotten cut if it hadn't been for the patrons asking about it. The Mothra model is just a bug. It's just a moth model that's supposed to be really small, and I just made it really, really big. And then Rodan, it doesn't look too much like Rodan, it's just a dragon model, but it had a really cool flight pattern. I guess we could have had Ghidorah. I looked for a Ghidorah model, but I couldn't find one that worked.
What was the most rewarding part of this whole experience? Apart, of course, from your baby being released on the internet.
For me, the most rewarding part was just all the learning. Back in like season 3, I had to learn a lot to catch up with making the rap battles after our original director left. Having to learn a totally new process took me back, and it reminded me of the old days of making videos and feeling like it's magical again. That feeling was really exciting.
I'm an oxygen destroyer, and now you're old too.
We didn't have the ability to make characters like Godzilla and King Kong before a couple years ago. Shooting on a green screen would mean a big rubber suit for Godzilla and a monkey suit for King Kong, which might have looked funny, but when you really start to dive into it, especially when you do close-ups and facial expressions, the versatility with a costume and like a mask doesn't come through the lens.
Our experience with masks has been very challenging. The Thanos mask didn't really allow us to emote. So the idea of using rubbery masks was a bit of a turnoff for me. And just as I was kind of processing that, Ed, who's our manager, who is also booking our tour in England, Ed mentioned this dude, Corey. I had seen some of his videos before. He told me that Corey does this motion capture stuff, and he does it all in Unreal Engine. He has some amazing videos of him in a suit, and he's making this character come to life.
What's going on, everybody? So I got my alter ego finished.
We set up a little phone call, and I talked to him about either working with us or helping us. Corey convinced me that working with motion capture in Unreal Engine was gonna be a breeze. So we went for it. So I'm gonna strap on my suit. I've got all the sensors wired in. I've got my little basketball booty shorts and my headband and my little footsie duds. Bam! I feel like a future basketball player. This is the XSense motion capture suit. Atul has been spending all day rigging and unrigging sweaty sensors. Can you show? Yeah.
Sensor right here. There's a sensor in his forearm, a sensor on his shoulder. There's like 20 some points The way we work in Epic Rap Battles is that we shoot the content and then you can go into the editing software. And this was slightly different because we're not using the camera footage per se. We're getting this straight into the computer. And so that allows us to kind of see what the movements are doing.
When you flip it around, it looks like this. Hey. Yeah.
Once it was all working, it felt like magic.
Ooh. Oh yeah. Got ourselves a new motion capture face, huh? The only game I play is Rampage, Lizzie.
Honestly, like putting on the suit, strapping on this camera to your face, and looking at the screen, and Godzilla is moving, and when you move your arm, Godzilla moves his arm. When you go ah, Godzilla goes ah. It was thrilling.
Hey man, me and some homies were gonna have a little barbecue thing. I want to invite you. I know you don't eat meat, but I figured, well, make a veggie burger or something. Okay, all right, I'll catch you.
Shooting for the first time on motion capture was a lot of like, oh my God, look at that! Holy cow, that's awesome!
The only game I play is Rampage, is it?
Oh yeah, that's great.
Once we got through that and we were really like, hey, we gotta start to shoot this, it became about making your body look like the monster. So for me, King Kong. I'm an Andy Serkis fan. I love the way that he portrayed King Kong. It was amazing. So I started just walking around like this gorilla.
Yeah, come on, dude.
If you ever wanna like really know who your friends are, put on a spandex jumpsuit and then jump around like a monkey for a couple hours. And if you're still friends after that, then you know you got keepers.
And let's do classic ERB, like you're standing here, you know, turning around into it. Yeah!
Oh, that looks really good. Yeah.
And I think the fact that the accessibility to this type of tool is way broader than it used to be. It's not easy, but you can get your hands on motion capture gear and software 1,000 times easier than you could even like 5 years ago. And then once Pete gets his hands into something, he's just gonna roll with it.
I think that was it, yeah. Okay.
The majority of the motion capture we did in 2 long sessions. Atul was here as our producer, setting everything up, and he was making sure we got all the shots and just generally being Atul's wonderfulness.
Your mean mugging is coming across really
Yeah. This is like what I would love to be like in real life.
And Jon Na worked as the kind of like the cinematographer on set.
You're like a video game boss.
Yeah.
Like the way it's coming off, it looks pretty good.
Hi, I'm Jon Na, and I'm the cinematographer of Epic Rap Battle of History. When we shot it, it was basically syncing up the motion capture suit, making sure that it was working well with the computer and all the applications. And I would just press record on Unreal in order to record Lloyd's and Peter's movements.
It's using like the camera from the iPhone that tracks the face. And it's make all the polygons. And it's making my teeth look. Did your teeth look this yellow?
Oh, awful. I look like I have, what's that when you have yellow eyes? What's that?
Jaundice?
I look like I had super Jon Na jaundice.
We would watch it in Unreal to make sure that all the emotions would work correctly with the anatomy of the body. We usually shoot with a camera on a green screen. And I guess in this process, we don't have to do all the lighting. We can just shoot the person with the suit on and worry about that all after the fact.
It's not like we took all this and it's like easy peasy. There's the most painful piece of equipment that I think we've ever worked with before.
Yeah, I find it okay. I think it's a head shape thing.
It's a medieval torture device that you crank and make harder as it squeezes your brainstem. You know, we're paying the price.
The sweet relief.
You came off the base for Frankenstein. First time we made a movie. And I dumped on you like Barkley at the base of Mount Fuji.
We are now in the very, very deep throes of the final lyric. We are batting around whether thanks to, straight from, a la. When you're down to prepositional phrases and how they fit into the song, you know you're deep. Early writing for Godzilla vs. King Kong started in 2021. Let's start watching these movies. Let's start reading books. You gotta do the research. It's all starting with the research. Let's write a list of all the things that we need to hit. King Kong, Empire State Building, Andy Serkis. He fights Tyrannosaurus Rex. He gets shot by planes, things like that. Godzilla is a whole different story. All the different movies that are made, all the different eras of it. It was a long research project for Godzilla specifically.
The original sound for Godzilla's voice in the 1950s movie was a dude with a glove, a leather glove coated in pine resin, like rubbing on the string of an upright bass. So we're trying to squeeze rubbing on bass, or the name of the composer, Akira Ifukube, on bass. I came today with Akira rubbing on bass. And Lloyd was like, that sounds, first of all, weird that we're using his first name, and weird sounds, I don't know, sounds like a wiener.
Sounds a little wienery.
It's fine.
He's a little wienery.
Sounded like a dick.
Also, I really knew I wanted to make a joke in sign language. I have family members who speak sign language because they're hard of hearing, and I know that King Kong speaks sign language in one of the last movies, and I thought it would be a really cool thing to like make a lyric that started with words and ended in signing. We wrote the joke, "Here's your sign," based off a Bill Engvall old stand-up routine. Like he used to have this stand-up special called "Here's Your Sign."
I'm gonna play you a song from Harry Potter. And I said, oh, cool, the movie? He goes, nope, the book. Here's your sign.
That was the hook of like, what if he said "here's your sign" in sign language? I don't speak sign language, but I do live in Hollywood. And sure enough, one night I'm at a music show, and in the front row is Paul Raci. And if you don't know who Paul Raci is, he's a very talented actor who speaks sign language. So I went up to him after the show and I was like, hey man, you don't know me, but I know you, and here's this thing I do. Can you show me how to say, "Here's your sign"? And he did.
Here's your sign. Perfect.
From the very time we wrote that joke, it stayed in there like that. Here's your sign.
Eventually we felt really good about the writing, and then came the hardest part for me, the Godzilla voice.
This is Kid Stop Standing Vanilla. You couldn't measure up to the shin of Godzilla.
Let's just get it out there. We know it's a little hard to understand. We get it. We wanted him to sound lizardy and electric-y and grovelly.
I wanted Godzilla to sound like a monster. To me, the Godzilla sound is bad. It is distorted. It makes you cringe a little bit in your spine, and it sounds menacing and scary and inhuman. It was really tough for me to like thread this needle of, I want him to be understandable, but it can't sound like a dude. And every time I made it more clear, it sounded like me or a dude.
Victor tongue wrestling T-Rexes and sea snakes. You're such a joke, Jack Black's in your remake.
Keep your tongue wrestling T-Rexes and sea snakes. You're such a joke, Jack Black's in your remake.
If you don't like it, that's okay. If you do, back me up here. Godzilla has to sound like a terrifying scrape beast.
The only game I play is Rampage, Lizzie. This beauty kills this beast that you trust ain't pretty.
Kong was pretty easy to record. Lloyd tried a couple of different voices. He tried more New York-y, tried less New York-y.
That's the type of New York accent I'm going for. That is how we talk. This is how we walk. Going in the jungle. Down on my bungle. Big gulp. That's how my riders go.
He kept coming back to this like DMX-inspired thing that I thought was cool. It had this like abrupt cadence and stuff. I thought it was cool.
Face facts, cankles. You can't sell seats yourself. So they bring the mammal in to nurse your feels back to health.
That's strong.
That was that DMX right there.
We know victory dance. Your defense will lead us set. 'Cause if you talk, kick at me, I'll shove a tree on your neck.
Our very, very first couple of battles had beats by 2 or 3 people, and one of those 2 or 3 people was All Arounda Beats. And All Arounda made the beat for this song as well. And then one of our patrons, Freshy Canal,
added to that beat. He sent us some new stems. He had some strings and drums in there that fattened things out. He even made a whole demo with some great jokes that we actually used in the battle. Some of it we used, some of it we didn't. Then of course Pete came in and added his magic, and in the end, everybody's efforts came together to create a pretty monstrous beat. And not for nothing, before we even knew we were gonna use this beat, All Arounda had named it Kaiju Attack, which in the words of Street Fighter 2 is perfect.
Early on in the song, I was pretty hell-bent on having Godzilla and King Kong actually fight in the battle.
I pushed against that. I thought Godzilla and Kong were here to rap battle.
The first demo that I wrote had like a section of them like making a joke and then punching each other, and then making a joke and then punching each other. So I was building in all of these like impact moments into the beat and stuff.
You're like Jussie Smollett, except this beat down is real.
I was more into having them almost fight. It's just like, that's not why they're here. They're here to rap battle. If you want to watch them fight, go see their movies. If you want to watch them rap battle, watch them rap battle. That was my philosophy.
And you were a metaphor for nuclear war, but in Hollywood they left your balls on the cutting room floor.
I am always more drawn to less goofy, less hokey things when it comes to monsters. So I was imagining us making a King Kong that looked a lot like the early posters of the King Kong movie, which is interesting because in the posters of that movie, King Kong doesn't look anything like he does in the movie. This hulking, muscular, savage-looking beast that I thought would be cool in a rap battle. And that was kind of the shape and the face and the eye structure that we followed when we went to the model of King Kong in the motion capture.
That was actually a model of Sasquatch that was made by this artist on the Unreal Marketplace, and I took it and I changed the shape of his head a little bit and changed the color of his skin and of his fur.
On the Godzilla side, I was thinking more like sort of like the Shin Godzilla look. More graphic novel, more savage.
I finally found this model that I thought looked, it's the Heisei, am I saying that right? It's a 90s era Godzilla.
This dance moves? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then my skin is kind of stretchy. Oh yeah. Yeah, all right, bro.
It was actually inspired a lot by this copy of G-Fan magazine. We both liked this era of Godzilla. It would have been a lot easier to use the modern Godzilla because there's already a fully functioning model of the new Godzilla that would have worked in Unreal Engine, but it didn't feel right to me. We weren't talking about new Godzilla. We were talking about like the timeless Godzilla, and to me, this is what the timeless Godzilla looks like.
As a big Godzilla fan myself, if learning about Godzilla has made you a fan of Godzilla, if you've seen like Godzilla -1, which was a masterpiece.
Have I seen Godzilla -1? No. Godzilla -1 came out after we had already recorded all the motion capture and the song was already complete. But man, I really would have liked to like wiggle in a -1 joke into that O2 oxygen destroyer couplet. It feels like -1 could have fit in there somehow. Now that the battle's done, I need to go see Godzilla -1. After we got the motion capture all recorded, then it started the process of editing the motion capture. And that was the hardest, most difficult, most time-consuming, most frustrating, most interesting experience I've ever had in making videos.
Once we captured everything on the motion capture suit, we started the rough assembly of the battle.
So let's take a look at this. This is a pretty cool take of this line. You came off the bench for Frankenstein. I really like his lips on this one. Let's take a look. Yeah! Lips are great for me there. Cool. Weirdness on his Lizzie. Can you see that? Lizzie doesn't look right to me. Lizzie should be more of a closed mouth, and that looked like Luzu. That's not gonna fly. So let's go down and see if we have any others. There's another one. Yeah, that works for me. Come on, he's coming out strong.
Once you got a rough assembly, I came in lighting the character according to the environment. So let's say there was a sunset. I would try to stay true to that sunset environment, having a warm backlight and a cool key.
Here's a light. We can make this light much more bright. Right now, the lighting has its volumetric scattering on, which means it's making the air a little pink. If I turn that to 0, you'll see it just becomes a light that's illuminating him. Cast shadows, I can turn off. You see right away, even when I just turn shadows off, it starts to look less real. So I just made the light blue. I can make the radius of it bigger or smaller. That looks pretty cool. If I change it to red, that looks pretty cool. If I change it to green, that looks pretty cool. It was daunting how much stuff like looked cool.
The trickiest verse that we did was Godzilla's underwater verse. In real life, if you filmed anything underwater, the water just eats up all the light. So how do you really light them?
And the way we filmed that was I actually just stood up like this and went like this.
That was cool. The top was great.
Yeah, the cool thing about Unreal Engine is how in real life your camera movement is kind of capped by the amount of money you have to spend. And if you don't have that much money to spend, you're not going to be able to afford a Steadicam or a Techno crane or like a drone flying from the sky into a close-up of a character. In Unreal, you can do that and pretty easily.
I can get the camera right up in his grill. I can move way out. I'm going to make a keyframe there and then move it to here. Yeah, and we can make this camera zoom in like that. The infinite possibilities of it made editing really different. I knew all along that we would probably work with someone to help us with the final renders. We brought on a wonderfully talented Unreal Engine artist and editor named Charlie Miller. Charlie started working with us on Ford versus Marx.
And it was a great beginning project. I worked on the environment for Ford and like the car movement in the background, retexturing things, adding little nuggets or like blueprints to whiteboards in the background, all of those little details that I know that the fans really like.
And then I approached Charlie and said, hey, do you maybe want to help us with this Godzilla Kong battle? And that started the beginning of, I think, 6 months we worked together. Is it that long? Working together on Godzilla vs. King Kong.
Which was a beast. A beast. Beasts. Beast. Many beasts. It was many beasts, actually. The hardest part was figuring out when to stop. Not getting too lost in the weeds, because you really want to. You want to get lost in like, oh, I want this thing to happen. I want this thing to happen. I want this to happen. This would be so sick. And true, it would. But is there time for that? Would anybody even notice that? So I'd say that was by far the most difficult piece to that. The last shot where Godzilla's like breathing out his atomic breath, I was having lots of tricky, surprising issues with that, where all of a sudden the beam was going through the back of Godzilla's head, or was actually spawning way over there, or spawning like right here at his feet, and it was surprising because I was not expecting any of those issues. We're not gonna have those. We know what we're doing. It's not gonna happen. They happened. They happened. Definitely check out my ArtStation if you'd like, or my Instagram. Those are my two primaries that I'm kind of on the most. My Instagram is Charlie Miller Arts.
So what I think of Unreal Engine is that it's going to give us the ability to do all kinds of different stuff that we've never been able to do before from a budget and technology standpoint.
Yeah, like a little bit of movement, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll just attach it to his wrist bone.
Yeah,
man, that's
right.
What I like about it is it presents a new and challenging thing for us to do with a series that's been around for over a decade. I think it's great. I think it's exciting. It's gonna pave a whole new road for us.
On the apex, great with the apex. Like all monsters attack your reps of recycled crap. This awful gorilla won't be bringing no silver bags. Just like Brian Cranston, you've been dead since the first time.
Yeah! Cut. You're so balls to the wall. You went fucking bounding into this painting. It was amazing. It was amazing.
I would love to hear more about what battles would be really cool to do this with. If we get to make more environments or we get to make more VFX, we could make some really cool stuff. And I know it.
If you have any suggestions for characters that you think we could use this motion capture technology to bring to life, please leave them. We're all ears. I think non-human characters work the best. Snakes, dragons, bears, goats. Thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoyed this, and we enjoyed you. We enjoy you still. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.